Hello, it's Kat. How are you guys today? Oh my gosh, so exciting to do this video. This is one of my favorite authors. I have done a video previously on her last book. Without further ado, this is The Stopover by TL Swan. Oh my gosh, I get freaking giddy when I know she's gonna release a book. I just love her so much. Girl crush, big time. I just adore her writing. I adore her quick wit. I adore her stories. I adore her characters. She herself is pretty freaking awesome. Yeah, see, I'm just gushing. I love her. So the very first video I did on my channel, different from the introduction, which was in February now, was about Mr. Spencer. Oh. So I finally got up the gumption to actually do this channel because I read Mr. Spencer and I just couldn't not talk about her books. I've been such a fan for quite a few years now, and I wanted to do more for the kind of authors like her that I love and adore. So reading Mr. Spencer gave me the push to just go ahead and do it. So here we are again with another amazing TL Swan book, The Stopover. Wow. Okay, first of all, it's a huge book, and I freaking love that. I like the fact that she's got so much to say in all of her books. I love the fact that her stories are so meaty that they're long. So for me, I appreciate it. I know that's the way it's going to be when I go into it, and this book was no different. She had been talking about this book for a while, of course, in her Facebook group, so I knew that she absolutely loved the hero in the story, and that she said that it might be one of her favorite men that she ever wrote. And I have to say, I was conflicted about him. I mean, I love him at the end of it, but he was definitely very complex. So if we go back and we think about the Stanton series, which is one of my favorite series ever, and that introduced us to Natasha and Joshua. I adored Natasha. I fell in love with Joshua. So that to me, and Spencer is probably my second favorite man of hers. Oh my gosh, but then there's Alistair. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, in any case, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a long video. I have to say that I 9 times out of 10 enjoy her men, totally get it, super hot. I love their personalities. I love them. The package, I'm all in. Jameson, I have to say, I got mad at him. But then I have to say that I also kind of got mad at Emily. So the story is about Emily and Jameson. And as usual, Emily is a kick-ass girl, a strong girl, great head on her shoulders, kind of driven in life, knows where she wants to go. And I love that, she's got sass for days. She doesn't take any crap from anybody. I always love that about TL Swan's characters. You always know what you're going to get when you read one of her books, which I love. You're going to get amazing characters. You're going to get an amazing story. It's going to be full. You are going to run all the emotions that you could possibly run. You are going to get a fairy tale that feels real and that plays like a movie in your head. At least they always do for me. So I know that when I sign up for one of her books, when I'm ready to go and I sit down and I swipe my Kindle, I know what I'm going to get with her. And The Stopover was that. Emily is a young woman. She gets on a flight, and maybe I should just say, and I think I'm going to start saying this in the beginning of all my videos, so I should have said it like a couple minutes ago, is that my point in this channel is to talk about the books that I love that I've read. So I'm very sorry if you get spoilers. It's not my intent, but just know going in that I talk in detail about the book and about the characters and about the story. Okay? So again, I don't mean to give you spoilers, but just so you know. So Emily is on a flight from London going to New York, and she gets upgraded to first class, and she ends up sitting next to Jameson. That's where their story starts, and they're attracted to each other from the beginning. He kind of pulls out something in her that, you know, she's just very attracted to him, and she is like, you know, she's just gonna go for it with him. And they have a layover that they are forced into having because of a snowstorm in Boston, and they take advantage of that, and they spend some time together, and it's super hot, it's sweet, they're funny, they have banter, which I always love. I laughed at some of the things Emily said. I connected to her immediately. I really liked Jim at that point. You know, he just, you know, he just knew what he wanted, and he went for it, and he took her along with him. And him being that into her gave her the confidence to go forth with him. And I really like that. Sometimes you need the other person in the relationship to kind of pull you along a little bit. And I really liked that about the way he affected her that way. And then we get into the next part of the book, which is taken a year later. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, so we know how that ended. And Emily has landed her dream job. So you know where I'm going, right? So she walks in on her first day, and she has to go, she's taking a tour of the building, and she ends up meeting the CEO of the company, and guess who it is? So, right, you just realize, you walk in and you're like, oh my God, how is this gonna go? And you know that the book is well over 500 pages, so you know this is gonna get good. So Lindsay is, you know, taking her on the tour of the building, and that's where she meets Jameson again, and she's flustered, and she's like, oh my God, of course he's my boss. Boss is boss's boss, right? And she's so funny. She says, oh my God, does she know I'm a dirty talking whore bag who effed her boss's boss's boss? I mean, it's just the stuff that TL Swan writes, the banter is, the sentences, I burst out laughing. I could be laying in bed and it's 11:30 at night and I can't put the book down, and I'm laughing because there's so much humor. And I appreciate that. If I'm reading something that makes me laugh, not just seeing it on TV, but actually reading it in my head, and the delivery is that good that I laugh, I love that. Something that we pick up on pretty quick that Emily talks about is that she met Jim on the plane. And I really liked Jim. But when she meets Jameson, he's Jameson, and they're like two different people. And Jameson is the powerful CEO, the commanding presence, you know, the guy in the expensive clothes, the head of the company. She talks about that he's kind of cold and he has that reputation. And it's such a juxtaposition to Jim, who she met on the plane, who was still commanding and wore nice clothes. She could tell he had money and all of that. But Jim was so different than this man that she's meeting and interacting with, and she's like, okay, my body's responding to him and I see Jim in there someplace, but who is Jameson? And she's very conflicted about that. And I, quite frankly, was right along there with her. That's why I couldn't put my finger on him, because he flips back and forth with her so much that he kind of gave me a little bit of whiplash. And I understood where she was not reserved with him, but she was very like, okay, I want to go for it, but yet I'm scared, because she doesn't know who she's getting from time to time with him. Something I really liked as well, and they both did this, was, you know, when their mind would trail off into something, whether it was something they thought about as far as each other, some sexy thought, or something where, you know, Emily just wants to like stay in the moment with him, but yet her mind is going forward. Or likewise, that Jameson did the same thing. They would say to themselves, stop it, stop it. And don't we all do that? If we are having a bad thought, or if we're being snarky to our loved ones, or, you know, whatever the situation, don't we all say to ourselves, okay, stop it, don't do that. Whether it's good or bad, that we're like, nope, stop it, don't have that train of thought, you know? And they did that all the way through, and that's why the story feels so real, and that's why I really like TL Swan's books, is that I can picture this happening, and it's playing out in my head, and I do the same thing that they do. I love, again, me connecting to the characters here, TL Swan's female characters. Emily in this book, they always drink margaritas. And I know that T drinks margaritas, and I drink margaritas. So it's super easy for me, when I'm reading the books, to imagine myself as these amazing characters of hers. Because I love me some margaritas too. And Emily and her friends go out for margaritas. It was amazing. Something about Emily and Jameson, which to me provided the angst in the book. There's plenty of drama in this book, actual drama. But the angst in the book was how much they bickered. And I would get just as frustrated, like Jameson did with Emily, as Emily did with Jameson, because they bicker. The thing that kind of frustrated me about Jameson is that he would say, oh, here we go. And I was like, oh, ass, don't be such a jerk. And then she would be like, what does that mean? Those were like their favorite lines to each other. And sometimes they were funny, and it was them just, you know, bickering back and forth. And in other times, they broke my heart, because you knew that the emotion that they were feeling, you know, when she would say to him, what does that mean? Like, she was shocked at what he was saying to her, and she was trying to absorb it, and she was like, what the hell? And then when he would be like, oh, here we go, he was dismissive to her, and it was upsetting, and it made me mad at him. And isn't that amazing? I know that sounds crazy, but I really fully understood that. A theme that runs throughout the book is that Emily almost mourns the times that Jameson is Jameson. And eventually, he says, you know, she says, like, where's Jim? I want to go out with Jim. And, you know, he's like, he's not here. Or he is there, and they have an amazing night. And her connection that she built was with Jim in the beginning. And she's trying to find him in amongst falling in love with Jameson. And even Jameson himself is like, I gotta be Jim. Like, he's so wrapped up with being the powerful CEO that's a lot of their roadblock, is that he can't figure out how to be Jim or Jay he only knows how to be Jameson, the workaholic, the go-getter, the CEO, the powerful man of Miles Media. And, you know, she's quite disarming to him, which is the allure of her, is that she sees him as Jim. And she doesn't care about his money. She doesn't care about his extravagant lifestyle. She doesn't care about any of that. And he loves that about her. But I think that you know, that's where their misconnect was that he couldn't figure out how to turn that part of himself off, because it was so much part of him and his life and what he's built and his drive, to be just Jameson and Jim with her. But he wants that. And you know the whole time that he's holding himself back from her. And you get the feeling from him, and you know that he's kind of trying, but then he'll say something and you're like, oh, that was such a jerky thing to say. And I really did wonder. I thought, okay, what else is there? I know that there's this whole Jim Jameson thing going on, but what else is there? And I'm glad that I picked up on that, because when we found out what it was later in the book, it was a really bittersweet chapter for me where we found that out, because it made me realize that he actually was a really good guy and he wasn't just jerking her around. And I think that's when I like fully accepted him as kind of being worthy of her. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like I said, I totally fell in love with him, but it took me a while to get there. And I think that bittersweet chapter where we find out why he's been holding himself back really cemented where I'm like, okay, he actually is a good guy and he actually is having an internal struggle. And there is this extenuating factor that he resolves. And I just hoped it wasn't too late. Throughout this whole book, because of their push and pull, they take two steps forward and they take a huge step back. And they're super, super, uber attracted to each other. And, you know, they talk about that, and Emily talks about that. She's like, I'm a total slut, and he makes me into this person I don't understand. And, you know, their attraction and their chemistry is off the charts. And, you know, that's something that completely brings them together. And in a lot of ways, it worked against them as well, because, you know, they're trying to find, even though they have all that, and that's super important, they're trying to find their way through life together beyond that. And it's such a part of them that they get blinded by their attraction to each other. And, you know, for women, it's very emotional. And for men, you know, it can be very transactional, although with Emily, it's not for him. And that's, you know, a pivotal point for Jameson. But, you know, it was really hard, because you knew that their chemistry was so strong, and yet you knew that couldn't be just everything for them. There had to be more to them if they were going to survive and be together. When it's good with them, it's so good. But they could change on a dime. And that's where, like, the angst was, like I talked about before. And that's where I didn't know where this book was going. I didn't know, just when, like I said, we would take 2 steps forward, we would take a big step back. And I loved the surprise of all of it. Just when I thought they were picking up steam and they were actually, you know, gonna work, after a particularly steamy night together, and, you know, she's made concessions and she's tried to allow Jameson into her life and accept Jim and Jameson as the same person, because ultimately they are, right? But she's really tried to accept Jameson and all that he brings to the table, and she sees how she has a positive effect on Jameson, and that's a really good thing. And I think she's feeling really confident She's still, you know, holding her feelings close to the vest, as is he. And like I said, it's after a particularly steamy night together, and he wakes her up in a very sexual manner, and, you know, they have some stuff, and she's looking at him, and she's like, and she knows that she's kind of looking at him with heart eyes, and he looks at her and he goes, "Don't do that." And she's like, "What?" And he says, "Don't do that. Don't fall in love with me. We aren't like that, Emily. Get that through your head right now." I was like, oh, what? What? I was so pissed off at him in that moment. I felt so bad for her. I was like, oh my God, you're such a jerk. And I mean, she could be kind of bitchy and very sassy. So it's like, I wasn't like, oh, she's this wallflower. And she's like, oh, no. He gets up and he walks away, and she marches right after him. And I really liked that about her. But that's where their bickering came in. You know, and that was a big step back. And it was for them, and it was for me too. And I was like, ugh, he's such a jerk. But not all the time. One of my favorite parts of the book was they go camping. And he's never been camping. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Because when you read it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I laughed my butt off through that whole time. On the flip side of that, major stuff goes down. Chapter 22 and chapter 23 broke my heart. It was so hard, so incredibly hard. And isn't that the most amazing part of her books? That when an author can bring all those emotions out in you, and you feel like you're in the story and feeling exactly everything and doing exactly everything that those characters are doing. So beautiful. I adored Tristan. Oh, that's Jameson's brother. And I'm so happy that we're going to get more of him. I adored, as always, the friends that Emily had. Aaron and Molly were amazing. You know, these secondary characters are really quite amazing. And she's got a gift with secondary characters. It got to the point where I literally couldn't figure out how, if, when they could figure their stuff out. And my heart was so broken for Emily. And she was so low after stuff went down. And I just didn't know how they were going to get back to each other. And it was interesting. The role that Tristan played in their relationship, I thought was really special. Differently than the way her friends were with them. Sometimes you just need somebody that says, I was in the same place. I couldn't figure it out either, but this is what I did, and this is how I got there. And it might not be the same for you, but I got there. And you can figure it out. Exactly what he needed to hear in that moment to put his head back on straight. And that led to the last chapters in the book. And even though they were still full of drama, I had hope. Let me also say that I will never look at Yellow Roses the same way again. When you read the book, you will know what I'm talking about. I sat there and cried through those pages surrounding the Yellow Roses. Jameson goes to find Emily, and you know, again, she's like, she's so over it and him, and she doesn't see Jim in sight. It's all been Jameson. And she's like, you know what, I just can't. My heart can't take it anymore. And he says something to her, and she says, you know, what makes you think you can say that to me? And he says, because I know you love me. And two wrongs don't make a right. If you don't give me the opportunity to fix this between us, out of being stubborn, we will both regret it for the rest of our lives. I'm paraphrasing. And quite frankly, at that point, I kind of felt like, shoot, it's time. Like, you have to figure it out now. You have to go for it now, or not, ever. And I really wanted them to have a happily ever after. And I didn't know if it was in the cards for them. And something that Jameson also says, which I firmly 100% believe in my heart of hearts, and I think about this all the time, is that when somebody breaks your heart, to be able to love again and to love them again is not weakness, it's strength, and it's being brave. And Emily talks about, like, oh, here, I'm just going to roll over for him, and, you know, I can't give in so easy and all that. And he says, to love is to be brave. And it's like, oh, yes, it is. Because as he's saying that, I'm thinking it while I'm reading it. It was amazing. So, so good. Absolutely, bar none, one of my favorite books I've read this year. I put TL Swan's books, all of them, up in their own category of favorites. They sit over here. My heart is full, my heart breaks, my heart cries, my heart laughs through her books, and The Stopover was no different. I am incredibly lucky to have read this book and to be affected the way her books always make me feel. So let me know if you have read any of TL Swan's books in the comments below. Let me know if you have read The Stopover. Quick hi to all my Swan Squad ladies. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and listening to me chat about The Stopover. I will see you soon.